Hi, I'm Rob. I'm the new guy. Is there a place I can sit? That's the first thing I said to the receptionist when I walked into the New York offices of Dining Software Incorporated at 9:30 a.m. Monday, January 3rd. I'd been hired to run DSI, and I didn't want to do it standing up, so I was looking for a place to sit. And after you sit for a while, you have to go, so I asked where the men's room was. First things first, we all start out in Maslow's basement. I knew only the very basics about the company that was now my responsibility. I knew that DSI made software for restaurants, had annual revenues of $20 million, and employed 95 people spread across two offices in New York and Atlanta. I knew that 3 years ago, DSI had been acquired by Paris Partners, a private equity firm based in Pittsburgh. I also knew DSI was in big trouble. Employee turnover was through the roof, and it wasn't hard to figure out why. The staff was miserable. The employee satisfaction scores were so low the surveys could have been filled out by prison inmates. The people still left at DSI seemed to think of their jobs as sentences to be served out. It wasn't clear how they were spending their time since the company hadn't released a new product in 9 years. That's 2 presidential terms without producing anything. DSI was a software company that had ceased to produce software. These major problems would have made any seasoned executive think long and hard before accepting the CEO job at DSI. But I wasn't, and they didn't. I was excited to get an opportunity to run a company, any company. I figured it was like getting your first head coach job in the NFL. You don't get to coach the Super Bowl champs. You get the worst team in the league. They're the ones looking for a new coach. Besides, I think it's fair to say I was no great catch either for DSI. The worst team in the league can't be all that choosy about their next coach. They have to settle for someone hungry and willing to sign up with a losing team for the chance to break into the head coaching ranks. In all honesty, DSI and I were probably the best either of us could do at the time. I would be replacing company founder Hank Liston, who had led DSI for more than 20 years. I had met Hank only briefly a couple of times, and I didn't know a thing about him except I knew I didn't like him. He seemed arrogant to me. So what? Corporate management is not a popularity contest. You can be a jerk if you want to, and plenty of CEOs are. But you have to produce, and Hank had failed to deliver new software. DSI had spent 4 years working on a new version of their flagship SunClear product, which was 2 years longer than Hank had promised Paris Partners when he sold his company to them 3 years ago. 2 months ago, Paris Partners got tired of waiting, and now it was my job to deliver the software that Hank had not. Putting me in charge of DSI was either a stroke of mad genius or just plain reckless because it was far from obvious that I was the right person for the job. Most glaringly, I didn't know a thing about software. The new system DSI had spent 4 years working on would be the 3rd major SunClear version, and within the company it was called S3 for short. I knew S3 was very important, very late, and that it was my job to finish it. But I didn't know what it was, or what it did, or why it was 2 years late, or even whether 4 years was a long time to build a new software system. The African elephant has a gestation period of 2 years, the longest of any mammal. So 4 years to build a piece of software seemed like a long time. Then again, it takes 7 years to assemble a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Some things are complicated, and I didn't know any more about restaurant software than I did about aircraft carriers. Maybe the reason S3 wasn't finished was because the design was technically impossible. If the problem was the interface between the anti-gravity algorithm and the telepathy module, then I was doomed to fail, just like Hank. Like I said, I didn't know a thing about software.